right, hello everybody. It is time once again for another Advocacy with Adam. I am, of course, Adam White with the Alaska Airmen's Association, and this is where I update you and brief you on a lot of the advocacy issues and I guess items that we advocate for on a daily basis for the membership and for general aviation in Alaska as a whole. So if you're a member of the Alaska Airmen's Association, thank you very much for that. If you are watching this on YouTube and you're not a member of the Alaska Airmen's Association, well, I would extend a personal invitation for you to consider joining our ranks. We are a group of aviation enthusiasts, pilots, mechanics, and just any other role involved with aviation here in Alaska. And our goal is to protect, promote, and preserve general aviation in Alaska. So do these updates once a month, try to keep them relatively short so you can go on about your day and enjoy the summer here in Alaska. And with that, say that I am not going to be attending AirVenture this year. Will not be making it to Oshkosh. So if you are attending Oshkosh, look around, see if you can find anybody else from Alaska, and look for some Alaska Airmen's I guess, swag and merchandise that may be walking the grounds there at Oshkosh. So hopefully I'll get back there next year, try to go every other year, and this is an off year for my attendance. But a lot of things are happening. One of the things you probably will hear more about during the week of Oshkosh is a national pause for general aviation safety. That is an endeavor from the Aviation, the Safety Institute from AOPA. And it is something that the Airmen's Association wants to encourage you to participate in with our sibling organization on the national level. But the website for that, I'll go ahead and put in the description, and probably put it up here on the screen for just a second, but gasafe.org. It's an opportunity for you to go and get a lot of recurrent training, a lot of online courses, a lot of things to make you go back and just reconsider some of your daily practices when it comes to aviation. And it's a pause for safety, exactly what the name implies. A lot of organizations in the military and everybody else will have a safety stand down, and this is kind of the general aviation equivalent of that the Safety Institute from AOPA is doing. And so again, we're not officially involved with that other than just adding our name as an endorsement to that program and encouraging you to go through and evaluate some of the materials that they have available for you to look at, all for free. You don't have to be a member of any organization. You don't have to pay anything. It's just free information out there and free online courses. So encourage you to do that. Anticipating some announcements at AirVenture this year, some governmental announcements. Of course, we have a new FAA administrator, Brian Bedford, who comes from Republic Airlines. So he is got an aviation background. There was some discussions as to what his qualifications might be when it comes to pilot certificates, but there was a little bit of confusion about that during the confirmation process. But Mr. Bedford was confirmed by the Senate, and the President, of course, accepted that. So possibility of some announcements at Oshkosh for some regulatory things we can expect coming down the road. I talked about this possibly last month, where we were anticipating a Part 108 proposed rule. That's the beyond visual line of sight for remotely piloted or uncrewed aircraft. Drones is what we most likely call them. That rule has been delayed. It's been delayed because there are some non-concurrence from other governmental agencies about some things that are in that rule. And I don't know exact details. I've heard rumors and I've heard some speculations. So we'll have to wait and see what really comes out with that rule when it does occur. I'm anticipating some right-of-way possible changes that the FAA wants to make when it comes to who has the right-of-way, who is responsible to see and avoid. And I've got some concerns about that, if that in fact is in that proposal. So be looking for that to hit the streets. You will hear from the Alaska Airmen's Association when it does. It's said to be over 800 pages. So I will be reading through that document when it gets released and give you a summary of what is in it and what our concerns are. So be looking for that. Also, just a reminder that the Class E notice of proposed rulemaking for here in Alaska, that comment period ends August 1st. And again, what this does is take some of the areas of the state where we have large expanses of Class G airspace from the surface up to flight level 180 or 18,000 feet. And it brings that into the norm of other parts of the state and other parts of the United States, the lower 48, where it would be Class Echo down to 1,200 foot AGL. I've got some questions about that, some concerns that I'm not getting any answers from the FAA about that, and they're in the middle of a proposed rule. And so it is a very official process, and they can get themselves in trouble if they have what they call ex parte communications. And so I don't fault them for that. That is a way that we ensure that we have a balanced and equitable process when it comes to rules, and I'm very well aware of that. But there was no outreach prior to this where some of these questions could have been answered. So got some concerns about how that's going to change our visibility and cloud separation requirements for a large part of the state when we go from Class G airspace up to Class E. The rationale, the explanation given by the FAA is to make it easier to issue IFR clearances. And that would be true. The question I have is, I brought this up last month and dealt with it in detail, is the FAA doesn't have communication coverage or surveillance coverage down low enough to where it justifies, in my opinion, and in the opinion of the Alaska Airmen's Association, to take all of that airspace down to 1,200 foot AGL. So if you want to know more information about that, I'll put a link to the notice of proposed rulemaking, and then you can go read that for yourself, and encourage you to comment on that if it affects your operations. Speaking of notice of proposed rules, there seems to be a lot of this right now. We are anticipating the Anchorage Class Charlie revision proposed rule to be published the first week of August. And that is on target and on schedule according to the FAA's timeline. And we can expect that rule to be released the first week of August, and then expect the FAA to be announcing public meetings the first week of September, where they can go through and explain and maybe answer some of your questions, and most certainly accept public comment about that proposed rule. I've told you that I was part of the ad hoc committee process. I was the co-chair of that committee with Alex Moss with DOT, and that committee worked long and hard, and very good representation of the cross-section of the users of that airspace, and we wrote some recommendations and feedback to the FAA's proposal as presented back several months ago. Now, the FAA is reviewing our comments from the ad hoc committee and accommodating those if they're able to, and then changing their proposal to reflect those recommendations, and that's what will be coming out in August. I don't know exactly what's going to be in it. I have a very good idea. I know what we proposed and countered from the FAA's proposal, but I don't know 100% sure what will be in that new document. So I'll be reading that one along with you the first week of August. Now, look for the Airmen's Association to issue some talking points about that proposal, help you answer some questions about that proposal in our own public meetings that we will be holding outside of the FAA public meeting process, where we're not bound by those federal rules about due process and ex parte communication and all those things. And we can talk openly and freely about it, and I can help you understand what's in that rule and then help you formulate your response. Now, we'll know more details about when those meetings are going to occur, when we know for sure what the FAA's timeline and schedule is. Again, they are forecasted and hoping to release that proposed rule the first week of August, and then the timeline will go from there. But until that actually happens, we don't know 100% sure what that comment period timeline is going to look like. So I can't issue any hard and fast dates and times when the Airmen's Association will have meetings and or when the FAA will be doing the same. So be looking in social media and in your emails if you're a member of the Airmen's Association, and you will be notified of the availability of that time frame. So again, A lot of things we fought long and hard for in that ad hoc committee process, and it'll be exciting to see what the FAA comes back with changes to their proposal to see if some of those things were accommodated. The primary one was not restricting access for general aviation, but also trying to accommodate the commercial operations out and out of Anchorage International with the heavy cargo carriers and the passenger airlines, but primarily also want to help accommodate the Air Force's request for an ILS to their north-south runway. That's what started this whole process. As a part of this process, the FAA wanted to clean up some other procedural things and some other airspace concerns for the Anchorage Bowl. I can tell you that I'm also working with a FAA working group on the VFR transition routes and the Part 93 VFR routes within the Anchorage Bowl. Those are also under review as a part of this process, and we'll have to see what that FAA proposal looks like to be able to know how those routes may or may not change. But the FAA is already starting to stand up that process so that when the time comes, we can act and be a part of that conversation at the table. So enough about proposed rules. It is summertime, and most of you know, as you can tell, I'm not in the Airmen's Association office. I'm in my remote office here in Nenana, and this is where I've been working remotely long before COVID hit. And here in the central interior of the state, we have a lot of wildland fires every summer, and there's a lot of temporary flight restrictions that get put up in order to protect some of the operations of the firefighters, the water scoopers, the helicopters, all of that kind of stuff. And it's not limited to just here in the interior, but this seems to be the highest concentration, again, of those things this year. So just a couple of things to remind you. What is the official source of the TFR? Whether it's hot or it's cold or what the shape and size is, it's flight service. You can go to your third-party app on your phone, your iPad, and maybe some of your installed avionics where it might give you a graphical representation, and that's probably pretty accurate, but the most accurate way to know what that TFR is really doing is talk to flight service. So please do that if you have any questions about those TFRs. Now, I will tell you that the Fire Service, BLM, and all the firefighting agencies are very much aware of the impacts these TFRs have on aviation in the state of Alaska. And I have been in numerous conversations this year with some of those planners, some of those airspace managers, and they are listening to our needs and our concerns and have been very responsive to those, and to the best of their ability have modified and taken into account general aviation as well as commercial aviation here in the state. They know and understand that we follow some of the terrain features and infrastructure, whether it's pipelines or roads or rivers or all those things, and know and understand that our capabilities and performance is limited, and that we are required just by the laws of physics to fly at lower altitudes to make it through the mountain passes than what the airliners and other heavy jets and other things can do. So they know that, they understand that, and they try to accommodate to the best of their ability to do so. But I will tell you, for one fire in particular out by Tok, that fire was right on the highway. And so the highway needed to be covered, that Tok cutoff highway between Gulkana and Tok. And that was a concern for a lot of us to be able to get through that area through the pass. And so they tried the best they could to move away from that channeled terrain, but that fire is right there in the middle of it, and there's the TFR still sits. So I will tell you too that one of our biggest concerns is how long these TFRs stay in place. And while we fly around and we look into the TFR from a distance, not wanting to interfere, it doesn't seem like there's much activity or there's much firefighting going on. Now, just because we don't see it doesn't mean that it's not happening. And even though they may not actively be fighting the fire, they could be demobilizing from the fire. They could be moving resources out by helicopter with sling lines and other things. So please understand that there is a legitimate need to hold on to these TFRs for a little while after that activity has kind of dialed down a little bit. But they also are aware that they need to do a better job of releasing those TFRs because sometimes these incident commanders are not from Alaska, and they don't understand the importance of being able to release that airspace to the way that we operate and live our life here in Alaska. So I'm on it. I'm working through those issues, and if you have any concerns about those things, please reach out to me. I'll be glad to reach out to those airspace managers on your behalf. Again, want to remind you there's new ADSB ground stations that have come online this summer. We've got 2 more coming online this winter, most likely, and we have the Fort Yukon ground station was owned for a brief time and they had some issues with it. It is still being resolved, but I'm told by the FAA they are trying their best to get that ground-based transceiver back up and running at Fort Yukon. And it's exciting to see the expanded coverage that we're getting from these new ground stations when it comes to receiving that flight information service, the radar, the METARs, all of that stuff, the NOTAMs, and also to be able to see that traffic that's rebroadcast through the ADSB network. So what I need from you is if you're flying around parts of the state and have noticed an increase in coverage, I'd like to hear about it. I'd like to know what altitudes and where you are that you're picking it up now that you were not before. The FAA was very excited to hear some of the reports that I had already been able to convey to them from some of you on the Kenai Peninsula because of that new GBT ground-based transceiver down in the Anchor Point area close to Homer. So it is good to see that station especially is getting some notice and recognition from a lot of you. One thing that you can be looking for is some changes to the Alaska Aviation Weather Unit's website. I know a lot of us use that website for our pre-flight planning and for our situational awareness, just to keep up with what the weather systems are doing around the state. We're going to see some changes in their graphics. Some of those graphics have been around for a very long time, the format and style of those graphics. Some of those are going to be updated. Some of them are going to change completely, and just wanted to give you the heads up that that's going to be occurring. Now, the reason for some of this is they've got some new technology, they've got some new computer processing abilities, they've got just the ability to depict information a little differently now than we did a few years ago, just because the capabilities of the technology. Some of it is also to help streamline their process a little bit. Some of the products that they'll be displaying still will be for Alaska, but some of the things we'll notice an increase in the resolution of, and one of those is the winds aloft, is what I was told last week. We can see an increase in the resolution of those predictions. Some of the other graphics may be coming from outside of Alaska, but still pertain to Alaska. So while the Alaska Aviation Weather Unit may not actually be making all of those graphics, there are other graphics within the Weather Service that pertain to Alaska that we will now have access through the Alaska Aviation Weather Unit website. So be looking for those changes to come up pretty quick. And just also would quickly want to remind you, as we're coming close to the end of our time, if you have heard or have actually had some concerns or issues with customs this summer coming to and from Alaska, please let me know. I know that we have some staffing concerns and issues with the Northway, actually the Alcan border crossing and the ability to clear in Northway. Now, those folks coming through there have been given the option to clear in Anchorage or in Fairbanks pretty easily, actually. But the problem comes is that may not be operationally able to do that, or that may not be where they're wanting to go here in the state. There were some folks that wanted to stick to the Wrangell-St. Elias area around McCarthy and didn't want to go all the way to Anchorage, and yet they didn't really have a choice. That was the only place they could go to clear customs. So please let me know if you have any real-world experience this summer with that. That's good data points for us to be able to take back to Customs and Border Protection and let them know how their staffing issues are directly impacting us here in Alaska. Also want to let you know that I've gotten feedback from a lot of you that you have gone in and requested that your personal identifying information be removed from the public side of the aircraft registry database, and that you reported back to me that it was a very easy process to do. You did not necessarily hear back from the FAA that they had done that, but when you check the FAA registry, it had been removed. So I would encourage you to do that if you have not already. If you don't think that's a big deal, maybe we need to have a conversation, because does the whole world need to know your name and physical address when they can look up your IN number on any of the flight tracking websites if you're ADSB out, or if they just see your IN number as you fly in and out of whatever airport you're based out of. So no other area in our life do we tolerate that type of invasion of our personal privacy. The FAA, because of the reauthorization bill, has now made a way to allow us to remove that information from the public side of the database. Obviously, the FAA needs to still have access to that information, and they still do, but they don't tell the whole world now where you live and what your name is, because they can look up your registration number. So please look into doing that if you have not already. It's pretty easy. You can just go to any search engine and say, how do I remove my personal information from the aircraft registry? And it'll pop up. I did that this afternoon through Google just to make sure that that actually worked, and it did. So with that, we're going to wrap things up this month. Again, I'm going to miss seeing a lot of you at AirVenture this year. Have a great time there without me, but hopefully I'll be back there next year. And do me a favor, if you've got an Advocacy with Adam sticker, take a picture of it wherever it might be, send that to me, put it on social media. And again, I try to put those here in the video just to show where people are putting those stickers. So it's kind of a fun thing to see where they are. So with that, I'll say goodbye for now. Appreciate your membership. If you're not a member, please consider joining the Alaska Airmen's Association. And thank you for your time and your support.